Well, today I'm with my friend Daniel Bardenstein, co-founder and CEO of Manifest Cyber. And Manifest automates the discovery and tracking of vulnerabilities and other critical risks across the software and AI supply chain. So glad to have you today, Daniel.
Thanks for having me, Walter.
So first, I want to get into the problems that you're addressing with Manifest. I know there are like two or three main problems and pain points out there. Can you describe those for me?
Absolutely. The core problem we're after is that organizations around the world still don't know what's inside the software and now the AI that we build and buy. So whether it's a hospital buying medical devices or the government buying a weapon system or an automotive company getting third-party software and putting it in our cars that we're all driving, there is a tremendous amount of opacity or lack of transparency in what is actually inside the software, and that creates real risk. So for many of us security practitioners who remember responding to Log4Shell, this really critical vulnerability in the single library, it took most organizations months to answer this very simple question: where is this library running in everything my company has built and everything my company has bought? We've gotten that down to 2 clicks, for example, and it's gone much beyond that. So the fundamental pain point that many organizations are still dealing with is we don't have a sense of our software supply chain. What are all the different open source, third party, or even internally developed components that go in the technology we buy, whether it's a software application or a medical device or a car or or a plane. And they certainly don't have visibility into the actual risk of the technology they buy, right? We're used to long Excel spreadsheets and vendor questionnaires that help us allegedly assess the risk of anything from a router to Zoom to a sensitive system inside our environments. And we just kind of take this at face value and say, okay, we think we trust this supplier. So overall, the pain point that Manifest is trying to solve is we're trying to make supply chains for both software and now AI much more transparent, resilient, and secure.
So, what about the pain point of managing new vendors for AI solutions? I heard you talk about that most companies have like 30 security solutions, and then all of a sudden you introduce AI, and now they got to have a whole new set of solutions in addition to the previous set. So, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. The current status quo of third-party risk management is not where we want it to be, I think, as a society. Well, the way that might look is somebody who works in third-party risk management wants to onboard a new tool. They might type in the name of their vendor into a certain security tool they have, does this outside in ping to figure out whether they think the company is secure. The vendor fills out that very long vendor questionnaire where they give these very fluffy answers about how often they do security trainings and how they practice and meet all these compliance documents. And so for those third-party risk practitioners, it is manual, it is not very data-driven, and it is very tedious and very qualitative. One of the core pieces of data that Manifest uses to do what we do is the software bill of materials, the SBOM. Most people think about the SBOM from a first party lens. I'm creating an inventory of my open source components of the software that I build. But we've also been pioneering and pushing how you can use SBOMs for that third party use case. Your supplier is not going to give you their source code, but they will, especially if you require it, provide you a software bill of materials. And now you have a much more quantitative, data-driven sense of risk of what is this, what is the risk of the thing that I'm buying that I'm going to put in my network, put my sensitive data in, and you can, and as we've had customers do, push back on your vendors and say, hey, before we go in to procure this tool to actually pay you the money, you've got to patch these vulnerabilities, fix these issues. For example, and for the AI element that you mentioned, I'll take the example of a customer of ours that's a Wall Street bank and a credit card, major credit card provider. If you want to sell to this bank, you must provide them these artifacts, and not just the software bill of materials, but the AI bill of materials that's in the software. So if you want to sell this bank an AI-enabled developer tool, you have to provide this artifact, and they can use Manifest not only to solicit that artifact really easily, that SBOM and AI bomb, but to visualize it, to understand the risk, and to figure out what actions need to be taken. So they reduce the risk because they've now bought more secure software. Once they've bought the thing and deployed it and everyone's used it and is happy, we also do the continuous monitoring. So 6 months from now, the next supply chain vulnerability happens or a new vulnerability is disclosed. That third-party risk team knows just as soon as their supplier what tools are vulnerable and they can go take action. The status quo right now is they're constantly refreshing the website of their vendor, waiting for the security advisory to drop of, oh, we're affected and this router is affected, but this one isn't. It's all very manual. attackers in cyberspace are using automation. We saw this past week the story from Anthropic with people using Claude and LLMs to automate with incredible efficiency cyber attacks. We need to give defenders, people who are responsible for maintaining and securing software, that same degree of automation and pinpointing risk so they have a fighting chance.
I heard you say in another place that the SBOM is not the end result, it's just a means to an end. So can you just talk about how the SBOM gives transparency and why it's so important?
Absolutely. When the SBOM in its current incarnation was first introduced, many people thought of it as just the compliance checkbox. I've generated the SBOM, I'm done. But if you think about what an SBOM is, and again, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's a list. It's a highly structured machine readable JSON file that just lists all the ingredients lists or really the ingredients or third-party components in a piece of software. Manifest's unique approach is trying to treat an SBOM like a piece of data. And like any other piece of data, if you aggregate it, if you store it, and you do all of your favorite big data verbs, you enrich it, you normalize it, you scan it, you can alert on it, you can report on it. Now you can really do meaningful things. So what our customers do as they're generating SBOM, so they're embedded, they have a manifest embedded in the CI/CD pipeline. So anytime a developer pushes new code, we can generate the SBOM, store it, scan it, and keep alerting on it. So we can prevent things getting into production that otherwise should not be. But then we also maintain this inventory. So now organizations can answer questions like, am I using this particular open source library? Or where are the greatest risks from this vulnerability? Or again, the incident response use case. For example, the NPM attacks from just a few weeks or months ago, our customers just logged into our tool, searched the names of the library, and saw whether or not they were affected and could take action if they were. It was a several minute exercise that before Manifest would have taken them hours, if not days, to do holistically. So SBOMs, yes, there's something that's made to be shared, especially if you're under some sort of regulation, whether you're selling to the US government or you're in Europe and you have to comply with the Cyber Resilience Act or NIS2 or other regulations. Many customers these days, like I mentioned, this Wall Street Bank, are demanding SBOMs as part of the contracts. So there's value for organizations for their internal security when they're buying technology, when they're building technology and responding to incidents, but also to help close that deal when you're trying to pass the regulators test and go bring your product to market or close a procurement, close a deal with a customer so they know that they can trust your software.
So I heard you talk about companies approving the use of new AI models taking 6 weeks. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So about 2 years ago, when we started to do research on how well SBOMs apply to the latest and greatest in generative AI and large language models, we heard the stunning stat from several of the world's largest tech companies and defense companies, where when somebody in the organization wanted to use a new model, whether it was a foundation model or a model out there on Hugging Face, which is where open weight models and public data sets often live, it took them 6 to 8 weeks to review and get to a yes or no answer because they had to read lots of web pages and PDFs
Mm.
and try to extract all this information from the internet and then put it into a place where they could easily review and analyze it and match it up against their AI governance policies and document it and get to a yes or no answer. This, like anything else, seemed bizarre and absolutely crazy to us. So a core functionality of our AI risk product, which we just launched a few months ago in August, gets this down to 2 clicks or just a few seconds. So especially for larger organizations or more mature organizations that are constantly looking to evaluate or bring in best of breed models, they can use Manifest to just type in the name of the model or the URL where it's hosted. Behind the scenes, we generate that AI bill of materials that's highly enriched with a lot of other interesting information. We can automatically scan it with those organizations' customized AI risk policies around AI licensing and vulnerabilities, model staleness, dataset transparency, etc. And then ultimately get to a human readable report of this model meets these compliance or doesn't meet or is in violation of these compliance needs, and I can approve this model or not approve this model for my internal use, store it in my inventory. So again, everybody wants to use generative AI and LLMs to accelerate innovation and velocity. What slows that down is getting to that speed of how quickly can we actually adopt this new technology. We've gotten that to a much faster place while still ensuring that the security and trust is there.
So thinking about who's an ideal customer for you, can you describe that?
Absolutely. So within enterprises, we typically work with three key groups: your application security or product security teams, responsible for making sure that code that gets written into products is secure and those products stay secure. We work, as we mentioned, with third-party risk teams who are responsible for evaluating the security posture and maintaining the security posture of third-party vendor supply technology. And we often work a lot with governance, risk, and compliance, GRC teams, because whether you're a defense company selling to the government or you're under PCI DSS or medical device manufacturer trying to get FDA approval, getting those technical security artifacts out in a safe and secure and shareable way to your customer regulator is also a huge pain point that we can make very easy. And we're focusing on a key number of sectors where we've seen the most uptake and success across automotive, healthcare, financial services, defense, and government. So we work a lot with defense and government,
Mhm.
and $100 billion worth of government software contracts are being secured by Manifest. So
Nice.
major plane programs, weapon systems programs, government software runs through Manifest.
Is there an amazing client success story that you have on the top of your mind that you want to share?
One thing that always gets me excited is when people don't have to live the pain that I did or others of us did once upon a time. So even hearing from some of our customers, again, in the last year, the amount of software supply chain attacks you had, the NPM attacks a couple times through this last summer, polyfill, exeutils, these are these open source commonly used libraries that overnight there was a red alert on them being compromised somehow. Just hearing how our customers said, oh yeah, this was no big deal for us. We just logged into Manifest. We typed in the name of the repository. We said, oh, we're not actually using this. You don't need to pull the fire alarm. Or
Hmm.
some of them said, oh, yeah, we are using this, but we know exactly where it is and we knew it wasn't a big deal. We knew exactly how to fix it. And I had to take it out to my engineer in a couple minutes. Amazing. It takes me back to how hard I was responding to those incidents 5 years ago when Log4Shell and others hit. And on the AI side, we've had already some really interesting wins. There was a large healthcare company we worked with that had already started using an open weight model that was super good at a specific healthcare task. And we helped them identify a couple of things. First, the organization behind the model was a little bit suspicious and maybe not trustworthy. The legal, whether or not they could actually legally use the model was also a little bit gray area, and it freaked out their compliance team. And then as they were already contemplating not using this model, we alerted them to the fact that this previously openly, publicly available model all of a sudden disappeared from the internet and was ripped off by its supplier, which is a major red flag. And so they were able to actually take out that model and use a different one instead before they took their product to production. Otherwise, would have been a huge pain and introduced major legal and financial risk.
Daniel, what's exciting on the horizon for you guys at Manifest?
There's been a lot of exciting stuff going on over here. Even in the last month or two, we closed another Fortune 500 customer, specifically another Wall Street bank, as well as Amazon, one of their critical business units. We raised our Series A this past spring, $15 million more in the bank to keep the adventure going.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. And as mentioned this past summer, we launched our AI risk product. For the first time, it was generally available, and there's a lot more to build, but we've already had a lot of interest and adoption, solving this problem that other people seem to be not thinking about too much yet, which is AI supply chain security, building AI risk management programs. It's a gap that every CISO and AppSec team is already thinking about, but they don't have the tooling to solve yet until now.
So how should people engage with your company and learn more?
They can go to our website, www.manifestcyber.com. There's lots of pages about what we do. You can reach out to get in touch. You can get a demo. We offer free trials. People can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I have a pretty unique name on LinkedIn. It should be pretty easy to find. So people can feel free to reach out and connect.
Amazing. Well, it's been great having you today, Daniel, and learning about your solution at Manifest. And I look forward to watching the company succeed and staying in touch.
Thanks so much, Walter. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.